Good evening. Welcome to episode 80 of the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Wright, coming to you from the beautiful, cold, and now comfy fall-like conditions of Atlantic City, New Jersey. Wherever you may be watching or listening, I thank you as always. Like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel. You can check the show out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and as well as on Substack. I thank you guys as always for tuning in and locking in. I got another jam-packed episode. I was kind of posting things throughout the week, couple updates. Please forgive me guys because I was battling with a real bad congestion cold a couple of days ago, going into the holiday weekend. Kind of put me on my ass. Didn't get to get as much done as I thought or pretty much expected to, but nonetheless, I got a jam-packed episode, a couple episodes coming to you. You'll see some of them tonight, possibly tomorrow morning, but you're going to see a lot of content coming from the show. And I thank you guys as always for the love and support, for liking, sharing, subscribing, for commenting. The community post was jumping. I touched on the Paul George vote that guys that you guys took part in yesterday, and I want to thank you guys for participating in that. But nonetheless, getting into this episode. This episode is going to pretty much touch on the NBA preseason update. Kind of basically a week out from the NBA season, touching on a little bit of some things from the Athletic, some of the things that I picked up just reading going into, start of the regular season. This one, more or less, the start of this is going to be dealing with some articles from the Athletic dealing with Eastern Conference side of basketball. I have another episode coming out in another couple of days dealing with the Western Conference. Nonetheless, it's that season, it's that time. Basketball's upon us, Halloween's approaching. So, listen, we love this game. Let's get ready. So, starting off, an article I read in The Athletic was almost about a week and a half ago now. Did a real deep dive into it. It was called Top NBA Storylines for the 2024-2025 season. And, again, headline in The Athletic. I have the link in the description. It was the Eastern Conference edition of this article. And it touched on a lot of broad topics, a lot of things I wanted to get into. First things first. They wanted to touch on how will the Bucks rebound from the disappointing season that they had last year. They harped on a lot of different things. We all know the Bucks didn't live to fruition. Rough year. You got Damian Lillard, a lot of expectations. I kind of felt like Adrian, coach is drawing blank right now, but I remember Adrian Griffin. I kind of remember, he kind of started out, didn't kind of rub Giannis Antetokounmpo wrong, kind of rubbed a lot of the veterans in the locker room wrong, and, pretty much led to his departure kind of early, which is funny because the team was really winning at that point, but, kind of bumping heads with the coach. Griffin got expelled, and in came Doc Rivers. Now, we all know Doc Rivers coming in there should have been the death knell, for lack of better words, because where he's been within the past 10, 12 years, he hasn't won. I mean, hell, he hasn't won a championship since 2008 when he was the Boston Celtics head coach, and hasn't been to an NBA Finals since the 2012 NBA Finals. So, needless to say, Doc Rivers isn't necessarily an indication that you're going to win anything. So, getting him mid-season, I felt like there was definitely an adjustment that had to happen there. And the Bucks just never really seemed to catch their footing. They had dealt with injuries. It was just a lot. But this offseason, another year in with Giannis, another year into the system with Doc Rivers. Guys are healthy. They got a lot of expectations for this team. Very important year for this team, especially with the future of Giannis and Damian Lillard and what this team may expect to do long-term, having those guys together. Some of the additions going into this offseason, they grabbed good wing shooter, Gary, and 3-and-D type guy, Gary Trent Jr., they grabbed DeLon Wright, another 3-and-D type guy, and also Taurean Prince, another 3-and-D type guy. Because that's, again, that's kind of the template of what they built in Milwaukee. Bigs. Giannis obviously was a big, but can kind of space the floor with what he does. You got Dame. You got Chris Middleton when he's healthy. You got Brook Lopez. Again, the way that they have, Bobby Portis, the fluidity of the way that they ran things and the way they have things set up, the team should be set up for better success this year. However, one major question that I really feel like that they kind of briefly touched on in the article, but that I really wanted to harp on, what will become of Chris Middleton? Now, I don't know if anybody's really paying attention or really noticed. Chris Middleton hasn't really been healthy the past 2 or 3 years, and he's commanding a lot of money out of that salary for the Bucks. But technically, it's like one of those fringe trade candidates where it's possible you can get something for him or get off him and possibly get some young talent or might be able to accrue some decent talent for him. So the game of Chris Middleton, the health, more importantly, of Chris Middleton will be vital for the stability and trajectory of where the Bucks want to go this year. Because make no mistake, Giannis being healthy is key. Damian Lillard being healthy is key. But if Chris Middleton can kind of carry the weight as the third wheel, give him that 20 points per game that he's used to giving. And I think at this point, hell, if he can give him somewhere between 17 and 22, that'll help. But if he can't, all bets are off, and this experiment might have to be, might be shot to shit pretty quick. So very interesting to see what's going to happen with Milwaukee, but we're going to definitely keep an eye on that as the season progresses. This next one that they touched on in that Athletic article, I think is kind of poetic justice. Something I've talked about very much at length on the show is Paul George and his the free agent acquisition of the Sixers, him signing with Philadelphia. I've always felt it was a bad move. I've always felt like with his injury history and with the fact that Philadelphia needs, I kind of felt like Philadelphia should have kind of went after a bigger fish. I understand if you couldn't get him, you kind of get what you can get. However, Paul George is not really the answer. And one of the questions that they presented in this article, and this was funny, this was prior to his injury. The question was, will Paul George help elevate Philly to at least the NBA Finals or the Eastern Conference Finals, which is something that Philadelphia hasn't been at since 2001 and Allen Iverson when they defeated the Milwaukee Bucks to go to the finals and eventually lose to the Lakers. Again, this is hilarious because the poetic justice of this, he's already injured. He's played preseason basketball and he's already got a hyperextended knee. They're saying his MRI showed it's a bone bruise. He's not going to miss serious time. Whatever. He's already injured. He's already injured after signing a massive contract. Think about this. He signed the contract, July, June, somewhere between June and July. It's already October and he's already got a massive injury. The questions they presented in the article, will his age become a factor? Don't know, but I can tell you now, the second question, can he stay relatively healthy? Hell no, he has already failed at that. Hell no. Third, how will he pair with Embiid and Maxey? I don't know, because if he can't stay healthy, will he be on the floor? This was a major gamble by Philadelphia. I understand you couldn't get LeBron James. LeBron wasn't leaving Los Angeles. He had the whole aspirations of playing with his son. I get that, you probably couldn't get some of the big fish that you wanted, the bigger ticket items. You probably would have had to have given up a lot. But this all goes back to, you should have never fucking got rid of Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler has been to the NBA Finals twice since you let him go. This is just an indictment on the front office. Make no mistake about it. You gambled on this. You said you didn't need Jimmy Butler. And a guy like this with Embiid and Maxey, this team would be a serious contender in the Eastern Conference. But unfortunately, you got to injure Paul George with a banged up, fucked up knee already in the preseason. Let's be real. What is this team really going to do? They'll threaten. They'll be good enough if they're healthy, but injuries are always going to be at play. Hell, Embiid is already sitting out for knee management, for load management in the preseason. Get fucking real. You're talking about this team getting to the conference finals. Hell, are they going to make it through the season? Like I said, I didn't think it was a great move when they made it, but it's even more interesting now that he's injured. So we'll see. Maybe I'll be proven wrong, but interesting times in Philadelphia. Next question they presented within this article, can the Celtics elevate back to the NBA Finals? I definitely think they can, especially in the Eastern Conference. It's not like they got a bunch of teams that can necessarily stop them from getting where they want to be. However, Porzingis is out at the beginning of the season. That's a huge loss. But again, this team has played without Porzingis. They can win. But this will affect them because with his length and the way he shoots and some of the defense that he plays, he's not a great defender, but he does play some partial defense. It's going to affect them to a degree. Excuse me. Will Jaylen Brown continue to elevate his game? You know, Jaylen Brown caught a lot of fucking slander. During the NBA postseason, definitely in the playoffs, in the NBA finals. And I understand that these guys didn't have necessarily the sexiest NBA finals that, we've seen, some of the greats have. However, Jaylen Brown has been on a tear. I mean, I don't know if y'all have seen this brother between the game he's had on the floor, his initiative that he started with Jason Kidd, that I touched on also, that I want to give a shout out to him and Jason Kidd as well for the Oakland initiative, the Oakland Exchange, excuse me. Pretty much a new Black Wall Street they're starting out there. And again, they're looking for funding. So anybody that, that's watching the show or, might have funding that might want to participate in the new Black Wall Street and the Oakland Exchange that they have out there, definitely check it out. It was reported on the ABC Oakland News affiliate. But again, I digress. Again, brother's been doing that. We all seen the viral footage earlier this summer with him, his girlfriend, Angel Reese. Oh, Lord. At that game. I mean, the brother's been having a great summer. I don't know. I mean, a lot of slander. He didn't make the Olympic team, but shit, let's be real. They would have won the gold whether he'd been there or not. Didn't really matter if he was there. I don't think it's really more of a deserved thing. I think it's kind of a favorites type thing. So, again, Jaylen Brown's going to be fine. And I think he's going to elevate his game. And I think he's going to put himself in a very, very, very good situation for this team to be, repeat champions at the end of the year. And another thing, is something that's very interesting. It's a good question. Are they actually threatened, or is this just pretty much going to be a cakewalk for them? That remains to be seen. The Knicks have loaded up. I'll touch on them in a brief second. The Knicks have loaded up. The Sixers have definitely attempted to load up. The Cavs kind of made quasi changes, but more or less got rid of their coach. Kind of got to see what happens with the Bulls, with Lonzo Ball coming back and being healthy. I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces in the Eastern Conference. I'm not saying Lonzo Ball is necessarily moving the needle in the whole East, but you got to really think about it. It's the little things that we don't really account for or test for right now that wind up playing out throughout the season that leads to these teams going to the playoffs, winning the division, i.e., contending, whatever. But I don't think it'll be a cakewalk for them. I think they'll be challenged. So if you want to say threatened, I'll say loosely. I think they'll be loosely threatened, but I don't think it'll be a cakewalk for them. I think they'll definitely have to contend with the size of the Knicks. I think if the Sixers are healthy, again, as I just touched on the previous topic, if the Sixers are healthy, they'll definitely have to contend with that. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting, but there's a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference. I think there's prime. They're not on the Celtics level where they're going to beat the Celtics, on a Tuesday in October or a Wednesday in February. I don't foresee that necessarily being a consistent thing. However, I do see the Celtics having some challenge, especially with Porzingis being out, coming back with that championship fatigue. Are they still as hungry? I mean, they look hungry. Tatum's been working out. Jaylen Brown's definitely been getting at it. They look right. They look like they're prepared, but we'll see. Jonathan Isaac of the Orlando Magic is something that they were touching on in the Athletic article too that I wanted to harp on. They said that he has a chance to elevate into a premier defender in the Eastern Conference this year. They did a full, and again, I have the article in the description. They did a full deep dive and breakdown on Jonathan Isaac and how his game will could potentially ascend as a defender, and how Orlando essentially needs him to ascend as a defender because they don't really have that guy yet within their starting five to really help them, shut down the best teams, opposing big man or opposing legitimate scoring threat. So that way they can actually, win a 7-game series against a veteran team, unlike what they did this year against the Cleveland Cavaliers. But I digress. Rooting for Jonathan Isaac. He's a young guy, finally starting to come along and grow into his game. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. But Jonathan Isaac's definitely going to have a lot of things he's going to have to answer for because with Mo Wagner, Franz Wagner, and just the team that they built there. Period. I mean, having Paulo Banchero, having Suggs. They're going to have to really, really elevate themselves and put themselves in position to really make that next step because they got to the playoffs and I think they showed that they can play. However, I don't really feel like they were great defensively. So him making that step is going to be crucial. I don't know if he will in the beginning of the year. I think possibly towards the end, but we'll see. And ultimately, it's an 82-game season, so it's a long year. This other one is more or less touching on the Knicks, and I thought this was funny because again, this was pre Karl Anthony Towns trade, and I also have some of the trade details within this article. They in the article they asked who will the Knicks replace at center. Now keep in mind, like I said, this was pre-Cat trade. Mitchell Robinson being out was definitely a huge hole. Isaiah Hartenstein had left the free agency. So it was just a lot of unanswered questions. And we all know how Thibodeau is about big men and having a big man that can actually play in the paint, score, play some defense. So drum roll. They finally made the trade for Karl Anthony Towns. Kind of a trade that was semi-unexpected, but expected. With Anthony Edwards' ascension and with Rudy Gobert being there, it was kind of a logjam in Minnesota. And then how Cat played in the playoffs in the Western Conference Finals against the Mavs, where he decided he was going to turn into a shooting guard instead of a center and trying to shoot threes, and that just ended, horribly. I mean, just fucking abomination. Just watching him trying to shoot threes at the rate that he was in the clip that he was shooting at, and just putting his team in a situation where they couldn't win, where they couldn't really elevate and put themselves in a situation to actually be in the NBA Finals. So, not really shocked about it, but again, Anthony Edwards is taking it hard. Kind of understand it. It was one of his guys, but I think your team's going to be better because of it, Ant-Man. My personal opinion, but nonetheless, this is about the Knicks and the trade they made. The Knicks wound up getting. They made it. Now, there's kind of a three-way trade. The way this broke down. The Knicks, the Timberwolves, and the Hornets all had to kind of work together to facilitate this trade. So the way it worked was the Knicks got Karl Anthony Towns and James Nagy. The Timberwolves wound up acquiring Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, which I'll touch on that in a little bit, and Keita Bates, which again, kind of expected for a Cat. Hall was going to be commended, and also. Keita Bates' job, like I said, he was a part of the trade and a first-round pick. Also for the Hornets, you got guys like Charlie Brown, Daquan Jeffries, Dwayne Washington Jr., and 2 future second-round picks and cash considerations to help facilitate the trade. But that was pretty much the trade in a nutshell. So Julius Randle is finally going to get his chance to really play. I thought it was dope. I'll have this also within the description as well. He touched on about feeling wanted in Minnesota and being somewhere where, that feeling is going to help elevate his game. And then you had Dante DiVincenzo, fucking like spouting off at Tibbs, talking shit from the free throw line. Like, it's going to be definitely a good rivalry game to watch those teams play this year. There's definitely some bad blood there. And it sucks because once Western Conference, once Eastern Conference, only going to play 2 times a year. But it's going to be entertaining to see those teams play because DiVincenzo pretty much feels like Tibbs didn't want him there. Cat kind of wasn't expecting, but expecting the trade, and Julius Randle just felt like he was just disrespecting. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting watching the Knicks this year. I think this trade definitely helps them out a lot, offensively, defensively. If Cat decides to be a center, the Knicks will be a contending team in the Eastern Conference. I mean, a legitimate contending team. If he decides to play like how he did in Minnesota and wants to be a 3-point shooter and not really commit to the style that Tibbs wants him to play, then his team will underperform and they won't win the games that they need to win, and they'll be out in the first or second round. Nonetheless, going to one of their Atlantic Division rivals, going down I-95, going to Philadelphia, talking about Joel Embiid getting his 3-year max extension. This kind of was done a couple weeks ago. It wasn't done quietly, but semi-quietly. Say that. He signed a 3-year extension worth 192.9 million, excuse me. I also touched on the fact that he's sitting out with the low management. That's not the point. I wanted more or less harp on the contract extension. I think that's big money for a guy, who's been an MVP, been one of the best players in the league. When he's healthy, he's a legitimate threat. I love the way he played in the playoffs last year, even though he wasn't all the way healthy. Then again, Joel Embiid is never all the way healthy, so fuck am I saying? Point is, 70%, 60% Joel Embiid was good enough to where they almost beat the Knicks. I know a healthy Joel Embiid, they would have beaten the Knicks. So good money for Joel Embiid. However, he has to stay healthy. It's impossible, obviously, with the history that he's had. Dealt with a ton of injuries at this point. A lot of them have been debilitating. He sat out early in his career with the knee injury, so I don't know if injuries are necessarily going to be a thing that he's trying to anticipate. Obviously, they're doing a load management this year. They're going to have him sitting out. They're going to have him pretty much, trying to stay as healthy as possibly can be, so that way he can elevate and be ready for out the stretch run. But again, he got his money. Congratulations to Joel Embiid, but I just think that's a lot of money to a guy who has not really been healthy, and you didn't really have to give him this extension yet. You could have kind of waited, but didn't want to sow any bad blood. Kind of wanted this new core to gel together, but a lot of money for guys, Embiid and George, who can't really stay healthy. At least with Embiid, I know he's going to be an MVP caliber player. Paul George, again, not really sure how that plays out. Going even further, we're going to go out west to the Los Angeles Clippers, and definitely check this out. I have the quotes here from Clippers president Lawrence Frank. Touching on Kawhi Leonard and why he's being held out of camp due to knee issues, and they claim that the knee issues aren't really an issue; it's more of a precaution. This quote is coming from Clippers president Lawrence Frank. The knee swelling in Kawhi's knee is going down significantly. However, they are being cautious and non-committal on if Kawhi will be ready for the regular season. What a shock! I thought it was weird that he even tried to play for Team USA in the summer, which I get, that's something he wanted to add to the resume. He wanted to prove, he could be one of those guys. He's been one of the greatest, when he's healthy, he's been one of the best defenders in the NBA. He's been a champion, two-time champion, obviously. I get it. But if you weren't healthy for the Olympics, what the hell made us think that knee was going to be healthy in 2 months if you've just been off of it and not really working out or anything? I mean, this guy has real bad knee issues. He has real degenerative knee issues. And it's sad because it's really robbed Kawhi of a lot of great play and a lot of potentially great seasons. But the Clippers kind of made their bed, and I understand, I'd rather be committed to Kawhi than Paul George. Paul George is going to get injured and he's going to underperform. That's disappointing. Kawhi, at least when he's healthy, he's going to perform. Just how many games is he going to play? That's the question. But, the Clippers, like I said, they had to make do. They had a new arena. They couldn't go into that arena with a dumpster fire of a roster. If Kawhi is even 60% with what they have, that's a lot more sellable than what the fuck they would have been looking at if Paul George had been there or they not had either or. So rough waters maybe ahead for the Clippers. We'll definitely keep an eye on that story and the knee of Kawhi Leonard and that ongoing battle that he continues to battle with that degenerative issues in his knee. And last but not least, I definitely want to touch on this one. This one is going to be quite funny, I think. This talks about how many teams will tank for the upcoming 2025 draft class. Again, this was an Athletic article that I thought was dope. It touches on a lot of the young players coming out for this year's class, names featured in the draft class. I already talked about our previous episode, Duke's Cooper Flagg, who actually played with the young squad for the U.S. team. Gave the U.S. all his vets a challenge to run for their money. Definitely a good player. I think he's going to be a problem when he makes the league. Rutgers teammates Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. You had the French guard Nolan Traore. Sorry about that. Baylor guard VJ Edgecombe. Georgia's Asa Newell. Texas guard Trey Johnson. And Arizona's Carter Bryant. And I think this is going to be just reading that article and looking at how the first and second rounds may shape out. This is going to be the first draft in a while, in a couple years, where both rounds are going to be lit and guys are going to have to definitely make decisions. I personally think there's going to be a shitload of teams tanking this year. I can count at least minimum 10. You can check the Vegas odds if you think I'm lying. I'll have that posted within the description of the teams with the worst odds in the NBA. But I think all those teams should definitely, if they haven't considered it, definitely tank. You're not winning the NBA Finals this year. And if you don't think that you're definitely going to have a shot at getting the playoffs, get one of these young guys and build. Because I really like knowing, I've talked about Cooper Flagg on this show, and I think he's going to be a fucking problem. A lot of these young guys that I just mentioned briefly, especially like the guys like the French guard, Nolan Traore and Dylan Harper and Asa Newell, I'm telling you, a lot of these guys are going to be coming out the game fucking hot and firing. College basketball is going to be very interesting to watch this year. The NBA is going to be very loaded with talent going into the 2025 class. So a lot of those teams, Nets, potentially the Raptors, the Spurs, and it's kind of interesting because with Chris Paul, I don't know if they're necessarily going to be a tanking team, but might have to. I mean, you got Stephen Castle, so you kind of, I don't know, but looking at some of these guys coming out, you might have to consider it. I mean, hell, if you're the Washington Bullets, because let me stop joking. They're the Washington Wizards, but they play like the Bullets. Nonetheless, if you're the Wizards, you might consider it. Another bad year, it might benefit us. I don't know. It's like I said, there's a couple teams out there where it's like this draft. You being very garbage might really benefit you and help get you some players that you might need. So we will see. But that's going to wrap it up for this NBA preseason update edition of the Blunt Tone Sports Podcast. I thank you guys for always watching. Like, share, and subscribe. Check the show out again on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Substack. I have another episode coming up for you soon. It'll be the Week 5, Week 6 NFL recap. I'll be going over that, getting ready for Thursday Night Football for Saints and Broncos. Check that out too. I have an instant reaction video for that. Take care, guys, as always, and enjoy your night.